Alright, so last night Bitcoin dumped pretty aggressively. We got a 3% move to the downside. Actually, nothing too crazy, but alts are reacting pretty harshly. And if you watched my last video that I posted, it's been a week since I uploaded. Didn't even really realize that, but I have been very busy. But I was talking about these two support zones, which are these two right here. They are the supports that were confluence with the backtest of the previous range high slash the lower high that we broke above, and also kind of confluence with the value area low of the overall bigger range, starting from this initial all-time high up here. I was saying that if Bitcoin starts losing this zone, that it looks like a lot of alts could get some pretty sharp moves to the downside to take out the liquidity that is sitting below them. And we can see that Bitcoin, just after I posted that video, did get a move down to my support zone, but it held. But even during that brief move down there, which was on the 15th, we saw alts start to take a little bit of that liquidity. So this was the 15th right here. That would be this move to the downside. And we took some of the liquidity. We actually, it looks like might have left that low intact. No, we actually micro SFP'd it, it looks like. So yeah, a lot of alts on the 15th started taking out some of the liquidity, but there was still some remaining. I think it was the same for Link. This was the 15th right here, and we took out a bunch of the higher lows that we had left intact. Link actually came down a little later to grab this last low over here before it got the rebound. So yeah, it was looking pretty decent. We grabbed some liquidity and Bitcoin continued to the upside. And well, what ended up happening is we ran into this resistance box, which I was pointing out as the most significant one in my opinion, because it was confluence with the point of control and the golden pocket, which I found that confluence later. The point of control did move up slightly, which, I always find that odd, how the point of control can move to the upside when price was not ever trading up here. Like, how'd we get more volume up here when price, this entire time has been below the point of control? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but nonetheless, the point of control moved up slightly. I'm still considering this general zone as my major resistance. And we ended up topping out there, and we actually got an aggressive move to the downside, which broke this range low. And once we did that, that is when alts decided to take the rest of the liquidity that was remaining. Link took out all these higher lows, and it actually went a fair bit lower, took out some of these higher lows over here, whereas ADA just SFP'd this low. So, it took out all these lower highs that we had locally, didn't really come for liquidity below that point. Solana also took out a lot of liquidity, but it actually looks like there may still be some remaining just below it. Why is this important? Well, it, I think, can be, one reason to think that maybe we end up holding this area as support, because a lot of alts already grabbed a lot of the liquidity that was available locally. So maybe there's not that much of a reason for us to go too much lower, even though, of course, there are higher lows much below us. But I think at this point, we took liquidity, and these things can now continue their uptrend after retracing for another higher low. So that is a bullish case that you can make, that this is just simply a retracement. Of course, there was a market structure break here, but I would bet that that is a lower time frame than the overall uptrend that we saw. And I would argue that, yeah, it is. That's, slightly lower time frame. Still something to consider, and that actually leads me to another point for Bitcoin. Bitcoin also broke market structure. We took out a significant market structure point here. I labeled it 6 hour. I'm calling it, 4 hour / 6 hour. And you may be wondering, does that invalidate the bullish break that we got recently by breaking above this lower high? And I'm currently leaning no, it doesn't totally invalidate it. I think, we still could, after breaking structure bullish, now retrace for a higher low to continue to the upside. I still think that is a valid possibility, but this definitely throws a bit of a wrench in our idea. That is something to pay attention to, especially considering that Bitcoin, like a lot of the altcoins, still has liquidity remaining. In fact, this is more local liquidity. We wouldn't be hunting, month-old stop losses from back here like we did with some of these altcoins. Like, how old is this liquidity? This is from August, so I guess a month ago. But yeah, Bitcoin has some more local liquidity sitting just below where we're at, so I think that is a reason for us to continue to the downside. That kind of contradicts my idea of a higher low, because this liquidity actually continues all the way down to the point that we are supposed to hold, the point that we are supposed to make a higher low relative to. So that does complicate things a little bit. I think we are kind of at an uncertain point. There are reasons for us to go both ways, I think. And what I'm doing currently is I'm just going to watch local price action, see how it develops, and I'll make my next decisions based off that. I think if Bitcoin starts to range just below this value area low point, maybe we hover around here for a little bit, but then we ultimately reclaim it with some bullishness, then, maybe by the time we break back above value area low and VWAP, if that occurs today before the day changes, or if it happens like tomorrow. I just don't want to use VWAP right after Asia session opens, right after the VWAP snaps to price, because that's when it's like the least trustworthy, I find. I think if this happens, I would start, changing my bias towards longs, and I'd start looking for long trades on a retrace. And if we, just kind of continue aggressively down, grabbing more and more liquidity, then at that point I would probably start to target this low. Now keep in mind, we could technically come down to this low and simply SFP it on the 8-hour/12 hour and not technically break structure back to bearish. So, we still could technically maintain bullish structure, even though at that point it would turn into more of a range. You still could technically say that structure is bullish and that structure is pointing upwards, so you can use that to add to your bias if you have another reason to long. There is definitely a lot of signs pointing to us continuing to the downside here, including Market Cipher. I think Market Cipher currently looks pretty bearish, with money flow continuing lower, and we're even seeing this recent low start to fail. The VWAP curving back down. I'm sure in the 1 hour we're close to, or we already have a red dot, with money flow putting in yet another lower low. So yeah, I do think Market Cipher is also pointing to the downside currently. But I don't think that completely invalidates the idea of us, maybe just ranging around value area low. We could continue lower, but just get SFPs lower and lower, and eventually maybe Market Cipher ends up looking more bullish on one of those last SFPs. And I think that's about all I can say for this right now. Thank you everybody for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. That really helps to grow my channel, and I appreciate the support. And I'll see you all in the next one.